Excellent. Okay, we're on day 2 of the Romford Film Festival, and we're doing our second interview from the short section. We've got two gentlemen here from the Grey Room. If you could please introduce yourselves and tell me about your involvement in the film.
Yeah, sure. My name is David Gath. I'm the writer-director of the Grey Room. And
my name is Andy Pinkney, and I'm the producer on the project.
Fantastic, thank you. And should we start off with, how did the project come about, please?
so, I've always been a massive fan of conspiracy films, and I initially set out to kind of find a situation for my characters to come together and just to drive a story narratively through dialogue. And because of that fascination of conspiracy, I wanted to align that genre of thriller and science fiction and bring them into a very simple setup for a narrative, and then deliver something that can ultimately leave my audience wanting to learn more about their backstories, how they develop their relationships, and so that's. I've always been a big fan of films like 12 Angry Men and The Usual Suspects, and these narrative structures that leave an audience to just want to know more, not just about the story, but the characters and how they come to pass, so that's the sort of the origin of the Grey Room, is to explore this kind of Twilight Zone world of, because the whole sort of outlay of it is to sort of be like a missing episode of the Twilight Zone, something that's been found and dusted off and reintroduced to the world, and to have that kind of platform, and shooting it in the style of how they would back then, and obeying those filmmaking rules, and then breaking them at the most random areas, then that opens it up to new sort of areas of filmmaking, and I just wanted to explore that. I mean, essentially this film was my film school. It was a really vigorous experience, long-winded, but it was and then obviously as soon as I got started development, I met this gentleman here, Andy, and he pretty much guided me like the whole way through, introducing people like my cinematographer Dan Turnoff. Like, the collaboration I had with him was just completely sublime. Like, everything was.
He got all the tools,
all the gear. Like, he really put his chips in for this film, and I can't thank him enough, because he's really helped me deliver this narrative to where it needs to be. And in essence, when we're on set, there's an unspoken communication that you just feel with some people when you work with them, and you know how they set their scenes up, and it's just the first day of shooting, I come to realise towards the end, I had the right people around me, I had the right team, and I never felt so blessed in that moment. So it was it was a really like worthy roller coaster.
I'm trying to remember the first time we landed on my doorstep. Who introduced you to me? I have no idea.
I think it was Lenny.
Was it Lenny?
Yeah, so Lenny was
a random connection from a pub that I know. He knew that I have a film career background, and he turns up on my doorstep with the script, and I'm like, okay, let's have a look at this, and I did, and I was like, yeah, let's go.
So Andy ran a place called The Transition in Chelmsford. Really cool place, and we essentially from the beginning of development, I then started to cast all the roles. Isis, who plays Axel,
he's never acted in his life ever, and he was another friend and a drinking buddy, one same pub.
Yeah, but it was one conversation I had with him where every time I would talk about Axel and just laying the foundations of his character to him, he would have similar kind of situations in his life, and it's just like, oh, okay, like not in sort of like being a scientist or anything, but like the kind of structure in his life at that point, and we just hit it off, and he got to know the character, and to be honest, I had that faith in him, really. And I think finding that, having the ability to find that talent in someone who's never done something before, I think that's a worthy thing to find.
Yeah, he was the only non-professional actor in the room there.
Yeah.
Everyone else, they do that for the job. He doesn't.
Yeah.
And smashed it.
But he held his cinematic presence. Everything was just his brooding and his ability to just. I love to watch actors just think and just be, and when you have those close-ups of these actors and they start to actually evolve in their characters. It really has a better communication of how they develop their roles. So yeah, I mean that whole collaboration was different. It was such a good learning experience for me as well. But yeah, that's how I learned it.
So if you want to make a film, go to the pub is what you're suggesting.
Basically, yeah.
Regarding the script, what was your influences regarding the story itself?
So yeah, I mean I go back to films like 12 Angry Men. To me, the exercise for this film was to navigate a story in my mind, if I could navigate a story in one room and with 4 different characters, then I can navigate a story in any kind of situation, but building those blocks that require those relationships, giving that character conflict the chance it needs, and then from that point, films like 12 Angry Men, you can really sit there and just be engrossed in their dialogue, and you almost forget that they're in one room because you're so involved with how they're all interacting with each other. You just kind of, their surroundings all sort of fall away. So that was the exercise, and then I love the films like Usual Suspects. Was that give something that the audience can empathise with, but then completely shatter that at the end, and have something that flips the dynamic, and you can really explore that area at the end. So yeah, I mean, films like those are kind of the main inspirations for the Grey Room. It's an experiment. It's a way of kind of honing my skills as a director for director-actor collaboration and building characters. And I think overall just an amazing learning experience really for me. But yeah.
Excellent. With the timeline itself, it's based around the 1940s, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
What was the reason for that sort of timeline there?
Well, I loved that era, and I wanted to sort of keep it into the era of the Twilight Zone saga, or the original series. And within that, they have the scopes of a lot of the Twilight Zone series is sort of based around supernatural and aliens and all that. And I didn't want to bring an alien creature into the film because I wanted to leave that as a suggestible thing. But I used the tools of dialogue and suspense and bringing those areas with communication through camera work to then imply certain things, and then just try and practice that really. And how I arrived at that, I just had the help of everyone around me really. Everyone was probably so immersed into that world, and I couldn't have had a more professional cast and crew really. And even with Ice-Tis as well, because he was on par professionally with everyone else.
Yeah.
So it was that was it.
Speaking about learning curve, did you experience any issues during the filming there at all? Any problems?
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, I mean, so for instance, the first scene, or the room scenes, we filmed in a barn, and which was about to be torn down to be made for a real estate, an estate, and the owner just said, "Yeah, take it," and then thankfully, my dad, who's here as well, he started work on construction for the set, and we just hashed it out. We had a really great production designer, May Davis, who came on board, drew out the room, drew out the plans for the room and everything, and it all just started to come together. And when we arrived at the set and we were putting the last little touches of the dressing, it just felt like you were underground.
Yeah.
And it's a very weird feeling. and yeah, like it was all based upon those collaborations and meeting these people and finding these locations. You know, as Spencer said, you know, another location was here. We shot here, and that was a very intense kind of. You know, we'd have days where, you know, for instance at the barn, the flight path of Gatwick changed to a direction that went right over our barn.
Yeah.
So it got to a point where we'd have planes flying over us every 2 to 3 minutes, and I've got to a stage where, so look, I can't even call action on this because, you know, I haven't got any audio, I can't hear the planes, so I just said to Jason, can you just please just shout action when you've got like an opportunity to get some silence.
Window of opportunity.
Yeah. So I just said, look, you call it because I haven't got any audio monitoring. So, and then luckily we got the shot, but it was just everything was that there was always an obstacle, but
Yeah.
we always had. I was just so lucky to be surrounded by those people that could just manage that. And
I think one of the other big hurdles was getting the right location for the nuclear bunker was the ideal location.
Yeah.
As soon as I read the script, I was like, that has to be in there. There is nowhere else.
Yeah.
And we looked elsewhere and there's nothing that would compare,
Yeah.
but it's really hard to get it.
Yeah.
And obviously it was costly.
Yeah.
So it was yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and then finally we managed to get that locked in. I was like, thank God, because that's exactly what we needed.
There was no way I could. I mean, with the budget we had, you know, it's kind of you have to make a choice between, you know, does the budget warrant more production design, you know, or if you find a place like Kelvin and Hatch, for instance, it's already set, it's already dressed for the 1940s, and everything's already there. You know, you just got to adjust a few bits here and there, but you know, I think that was a sacrifice worth making more than having to put into and that's the choice I made, because I thought if I'm going to really help these actors arrive at a place that they can get to that like finality of their characters and their demises, then what better place to put it than somewhere that was actually used before, and you go in and you go down this bunker and you really feel it. You feel the intensity already, and it's still activatable as well. I think isn't it?
It could be called back into service if they want to. Any point.
It's incredible place, and I think that was worth the budget for the production. But then obviously that comes into play about post-production. It's the sacrifice for using that place cost me post-production.
Yeah.
So it became a little bit longer-winded to get the final cut than I anticipated. But I think, looking back, I don't think I would have traded it for anything really.
Also, we had COVID in the way as well. That's always going to be a big hurdle.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so we shot here during COVID,
yeah.
and that was interesting. So all the different measures we had to put in place, everything that we had to line up to get the infrastructure required to film here. You know, we adhered to down to the T. Like everything was, you know, but it just added something extra onto the day. Like we have to. So it's always a challenge, but I think everyone was so invested in it. Everyone was so like eager for their characters, eager for their performances, and we just got to a place where everyone was just having an absolute blast, and so was I, and we were all just gelling so well. Yeah, such a great experience. That was
Excellent.
that's it.
And talking of budgets, putting things like Kelvin in there, did that make any changes to the original script? We had to take other stuff out to accommodate having the bunker in there?
Not really. I mean, obviously the ending I wrote was to just really solidify the kind of the revisitation of the room scenes. You know, Kelvin we used as a tool to deliver, you know, those connotations of why these characters, why should you have looked at this character differently the whole time?
Yeah.
Or why should you? Yeah, I mean, these locations, as great a production value as they are, it's more about a mechanic to deliver the twist and to deliver, you know, and then you sort of use it as a tool really. And I think in the grand scheme of things, the budget required it. So it was those were the kind of the decisions I arrived at with that really, because there was nothing that was deviated from the script to accommodate anything else. It was more so about the timings, because you know, I'll disclose it, but it was like nearly 160 quid an hour to shoot there. So it was like we had to really, on the first hour we were just setting up lights. So it's like time is literally money there. And you have to
That's plus fat as well.
plus that, yeah. But it was, but at the same time, when shooting there, when all the lights are set up, everything is ready to go, you know, you arrive at a visual that is like, wow, you can really latch onto this moment and you can really follow it through. So, yeah, that's what I arrived at really.
And what were some of your favourite moments during the filming?
But it has to be here, shooting in Romford and Kelvedon. But to be honest, I the entire experience, I mean, even, you know, my sort of practice in directing in that moment was, you know, you don't have to know everything in every given moment. If you understand that you can approach your actors and ask them, look, to be able to drive this narrative forward, you know, in this moment, I need you to help me justify why you go from this end of the room to that end of the room. And it's like realising you can have that collaboration, you can really have that dialogue is quite refreshing. You can really just sit back and like say, no, why would you, what motivation could you give yourself for that? You know, why would you arrive at that place? So it's using those mechanics and those communications to arrive at a place that you can find a unique like exchange between your actors. And then, yeah, it was such a great experience, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Excellent. Any more questions from the audience outside?
Oh, hang on, sorry. I'm on the way. I loved watching The Grey Room. Sorry, you can't see me.
Oh, right.
What's next for the film? Are you going to release it into more festivals or put it
Yeah.
online, and or are you going to do a sequel or feature film version? Or
Yeah, I mean, it's currently The Grey Room is a pitch for a series that I've been writing. It arrives around the same era, but it follows the original Men in Black or Men in Hats, as they call it, and it delves into that lifestyle of paying off powerful people to cover up, you know, and articulating characters like that to arrive at those areas. But yeah, I mean, what's next to the film? I you know, hosting private screenings, more events, and just introducing it into different platforms wherever I can, really. Trying to reintroduce this style of filmmaking where I can with the resources I have, and just try and show filmmakers that they can make worlds and not just films. You know, they can build worlds, and it doesn't take, you know, as the previous filmmakers come on, you can really surround yourself with people that can guide you to that process, and not, you know, without you sacrificing too much of your own sort of values to get it made. And that's what The Grey Room I hope to sort of show people, is that you don't need a lot to drive a narrative in terms of, as long as you've got a cast who believe in themselves and their characters, and you've got a script that you would like bend over backwards for and stick to it. I mean, this film was in development for 5 years, and it's a short film. So, I mean, I think that warrants in itself is that if you have the tenacity to finish a project, even if it is a short format film, but you believe in your heart that it is something worth, you know, reintroducing to the world, then I think that warrants some response from it. So
I think the proof's in the pudding there. I mean, if he hadn't turned up on the doorstep with something I believed in and him himself, then I would run with it. That is it.
Yeah.
And he was there at the right time to the right person and with the right energy.
Yeah.
And that was that.
Awesome.
I
Any
hope
other
that answers
questions?
your questions.
Two at the front.
Where is he?
Hi, well done on a great film, by the way. As someone who regularly works an event in the bunker, I'm quite interested to know, like, how did you choose the spaces you used in the bunker?
Me. Me?
There's lots of space, because I know I fall over regularly, I run around it regularly as a zombie, and you know, there's so much space you could have used there, so I'm just interested to know.
So my dad used to take me there a lot. So I've been there quite a few times before I met Dan. And like I said before, once I got the script in my head, reading it, I was like, it's there and it's this room. And I think you weren't going to use the war room with the big see-through maps at one point, and I was like, that's got to be in it.
Yeah.
That's got to be in it. And we made you made it happen.
Yeah, it was
And
great.
it worked. It really worked. So yeah, it was my knowledge, my input locally, my connections, my faith, and yeah, that's it.
I mean, the room scenes, again, you know, we didn't want to sort of find, we wanted to, I wanted to incorporate more of the production design side of the film, and you know, learning to collaborate with production designers, learning to collaborate with people of different departments, you know, I think was an important practice at that time, and I wanted to find, especially if you're building more of a world than you are, you know, because it's situational cinema. It's you know, if you can find yourself to acquire the ability to collaborate with production designers, art department, everyone, you know, you gradually start to become, you know, multi-diverse in that role, and you can really get away with a lot in terms of, you know, how you plan your shots and everything. You know, with the barn, I can when I stepped into it first day, I actually felt like I was underground. So, you know, you can really like the level of manipulation you can achieve in terms of just narrative storytelling. You can, I think it's picking your locations. It depends on, you know, if you have good conversations with your editor, good conversations, really vivid conversations with your cinematographer, you can be surprised at what you can get away with location-wise.
Yep, I think it goes to say that we had May Davies, who's BAFTA award-winning, as she lives in another pub in Chelmsford. So she was a local person we knew really well, and we were lucky to have that kind of talent.
Really lucky.
Really lucky.
Any more questions, guys? So, one at the front.
So after all those years that you've taken to sort of put it all together and all that hard work, what did you do to celebrate once you'd finished?
Oh, if I can remember the night, I'll tell you. No, I essentially, you know, we're still yet to celebrate. Really,
We've not celebrated yet.
We're gonna. I want to host a private screening soon with the cast and crew, but we are essentially gonna, as sort of spoken before, gonna do a little bit of a circuit for like screenings as well, really, and just introduce it to people that are interested in that style of filmmaking, and just to really find a place that it belongs. So it's celebrating for me is being amongst you people and just seeing how you find it and arriving at a place that you can say, oh no, what's missing, what's this, what's that, and I mean that's to me is just sharing it with everyone and yourselves is an emotion in itself, I think. So, yeah.
Excellent.
That's it.
That's it. Brilliant. That's a couple more from me. What's next for you guys? I know you mentioned the series.
Yeah, so I've been optioned to direct a feature film next year. It's a teen adventure film, and I'm sort of I've just finished reading it, and I've got meetings with the writer next week. So I'm pretty much in development of that at the moment, but it's very early days. But it's and then there's also my last short film, which I'm close to finishing the script for. It's another psychological thriller, but it's more current, so it's set today. But yeah, it's I've got a good roster of projects in the next couple of years. I just want to sort of find, you know, my next challenge now is the feature film to get my first feature up, you know, in my sights is my main priority. Just to, because it's just to challenge myself. I want to develop that practice and get it into an area that I can really sink my teeth into and commit a good couple of years to, and so I think it's looking good.
Excellent.
I'm not actually active in the film sector so much at the minute, but I'm concentrating my efforts on a film studio complex. So my finger's in the pie still. So maybe Spencer might help me out with this promotionally. I don't know. I'll be nice.
Stop hiding.
And final question: if someone's looking to get into filmmaking, what advice would you give them?
One video I recently watched was an interview with Seth Rogen. It basically comes down to this: if you give up, you're never going to get it. But if you don't give up, you might get it. So it's a question of your own tenacity. If you feel in your gut that this is where you need to be, you know, it doesn't tell you instantaneously in things that you see. It's basically, do you have the longevity for this? Can you take a script, have the ability to say yes or no to it? Because if you don't have it here or here for a good year or two to develop it fully, if it's a feature, then, you know, is it something worth taking on? You know, it's a question of, like, you know, learning to say yes or no to a project is just as important as making a project, because it's, you know, it delivers your own repertoire of filmography, and how does it resonate with your career and how you see your career to be. So I think don't give up is obviously a given, but surround yourself with people that, you know, you can instantaneously rely on. You know, you can close your network, you can work with the same people as much as you want, but it's learning to, like I said before, like collaborating with different departments and arriving at a place that you can feel confident to say, no, this film needs to be made, and it needs to be made by me. Like, it's because if you can go to bed every night and you're watching the film, the entire film in your head, then you're ready to make the film, and you're ready to pursue it. And I think it is a game of longevity. Do you have the stamina, the mental stamina and that's what you've got to challenge yourself with every time, because, you know, you've got to have that mind of, you know, you've got to have this, you've got to be a rock, especially with people. You know, it's learning to put your ego down and say, no, challenge this. What is it that took you away from my story? What is it that, you know, I can learn from? So you're always going to learn, and you're always, you know, even Spielberg himself is still learning. You know, it's not about, you know, saying I am the big I am. It's about they are the big that they.
Yeah.
You know, because you're all celebrating each other at the end of the day. And a film set, you know, it's the culmination of your networking. It's the culmination of, I've met these people and now we're working together, and that's a beautiful thing. So, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Same question to me, yeah?
Yes, please.
Yeah, always have a plan B or a C.
Yeah.
Things don't go well sometimes, and you need to have something to tide you over. Be resilient, be patient. If something's not working, change it, and keep changing again and again and again until you make it work.
Excellent. Thank you both. That's the interview for the Grey Room.
No worries.
Thank you very much, guys.